All right, so we'll get started here. My name is Carly, and thank you all for jumping on today. So we're going to jump straight into the presentation. But while we wait for a couple more people to jump on, I'd just like to go over a few housekeeping items for today. So first of all audience members will be muted for the entire webinar. However, we would love to be as interactive as possible today, so feel free to drop any questions you have into the chat box, and we'll have plenty of time to get to them at the end of the presentation. All registrants will also have the recording of this webinar in their inbox within the next 24 hours. So with that, I would love to introduce our three panelists today. From Knowi, we have our COO, Ryan Levy, and one of our solution engineers, but you may know him better as your own personal Knowi Sherpa, Manny. And then from Couchbase Analytics, we welcome solutions engineer, Peter Riali. So with that, Peter, feel free to take the reins.
We're going to do a quick Couchbase and Knowi introduction. We'll give you a little demo of what's going on first on the Couchbase side, and then on the Knowi side. You'll see the two of them mesh extremely well together. And then we'll take some questions and wrap up afterwards. So I hope you enjoy it. And as Carly said, please, if you have questions, add them to the chat, and we'll make sure that Manny or I cover them at the end. So first of all, Couchbase. Couchbase is, as you probably know, a data platform, the purpose of which is to speed up and enable application development. We do this by being the only database which provides you with the great features and the best of NoSQL, along with the power and familiarity of SQL, all wrapped up in a single elegant platform, and that will span all the way from the cloud to the edge. And the architecture is memory first, replication built in, and a number of different services, including the analytics service, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today. You'll see on the edge of our little circle diagram here that we have integrations via our programming model and through various connectors through to the rest of the world. And among the rest of the world, we include Knowi, which is extremely good at leveraging our SDK in order to provide immediate access, not only to Couchbase, to a number of other things. So I'm going to pass over to Ryan and let him describe a little bit more about the Knowi platform.
Thank you, Peter. So many of you are or may already be existing Couchbase customers leveraging the great functionality and capabilities of the NoSQL platform. And what we do is we extend the capabilities from an analytics and visualization standpoint. So where does Knowi actually fit into the picture? We're an analytics platform that instantly connects to your Couchbase data anywhere of any size, allowing you to make data-driven decisions. Now, those are some simple words, real short and punchy taglines, but there's a lot of power behind the meaning of what I'm actually talking about here. So when we talk about your Couchbase data, we natively and instantly connect to your Couchbase data source. We speak the same language. No need to actually learn new query languages. We actually communicate in Nickel. We then have the ability to connect to your data no matter where it is. On-premise, in the cloud, onshore, offshore. When we talk about anywhere, we really don't care where the data resides as long as we have connectivity to it. From a size perspective, we don't mind if your data is small, medium, large, extra large, big data, whale of data, whatever term you want to use. It is not a problem for Knowi. And there's great reasoning behind that. Because we natively and instantly connect your data, we connect your data at source. We don't have a requirement for any kind of conversion, flattening, manipulation, or more importantly, any movement of your data. So in essence, we eliminate the need for any form of ETL, which for many organizations is not just a costly and resource-intensive process, but it is also a process that extends the timeline from when you connect your data source through to when you're actually able to realize value from your data. And lastly, and most importantly for us, is putting the power of the data, of your data, in your hands. And when we talk about you, we don't mind who you are. We're actually built to provide the benefits of your data for no matter whether you're the data scientist, data analyst, chief data officer, whether you're a business user, financial user, it doesn't matter. We provide the capabilities to view your data, how you want it, where you want it, and when you want it. Now, built on top of our platform, we provide capabilities such as natural language processing, the ability to provide Google-like search functionality across your data or across multiple data sources. We also integrate AI, and in our case, in the form of machine learning. And we also provide flexible deployment capabilities. We understand that your needs may differ from other organizations and that not one size fits all. And so we provide the ability to deploy the Knowi platform as a SaaS-based option, on-prem, or actually embedded in an existing software stack. Peter, would you mind forwarding? Thank you. So with that said, we're going to jump into a demo. We're going to give you an overview of the actual Couchbase environment, the capabilities from a Couchbase perspective, and then we're going to do the same from a Knowi perspective. So over to you, Peter.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Ryan. All right, so we're going to do a fairly quick demo of Couchbase and Knowi. The first thing you're going to want to understand, because it's the heart of anything that you're working with, is what does our data look like? The data in Couchbase, which Knowi is extremely good at accessing, is in the JSON format. What this means is I'm able to store my data in the same way that my application and my application developers think of it. So I don't have to flatten my data. I don't have to somehow turn it into rows and columns. I have a very agile development environment because I'm storing my data in JSON documents in the Couchbase database. Now, for our example data for today's demonstration, we're going to have a couple of types of documents. One of our documents is going to describe breweries. So it's going to include information on location and description and that sort of thing. And you'll see that it also has here something which is not flat, but a hierarchical lat, long, and accuracy attributes that are underneath the geo attribute. So it's a non-flat document. And again, it's JSON, so it could be as hierarchical as we like it to be. And as we'll see, one of the beauties of using Couchbase is that you will be able to query this using a SQL language. The other document is a flat document which describes the beers. The beers are associated with the brewery, so we're going to have to be able to do some kind of joining and linking back to the brewery in order to get value out of our queries, which leads us to what type of queries are we going to talk about here? In the JSON world, in the NoSQL world, there's really about 4 types of queries that you're likely to be using. I'm going to give you a demonstration of 3 of them, which is, we'll start with the simplest one, which is what they call a key value or KV query. The idea with key value is I've got a document, I've got a JSON document, I know the key that is associated with that document, it's unique, and I can retrieve that document extremely efficiently from my database simply by giving it a key and returning back the value. And there are a lot of database products out there that don't know how to do anything but this. Let me give you an example of how we might do that in Couchbase. So here's my bucket statistics. I've got this little beer sample bucket. Right now it's not doing very much work, but Couchbase will allow us to go out and put a little bit of load onto the server and simulate very large key value retrievals. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Let's go ahead and onto our application node. And what I'm going to do is use one of the Couchbase utilities that ships with the product to allow it to simulate some load onto my server. So away we go. And we see pretty quickly that I'm jumping up, and Couchbase server is now handling, looks like an average of about 118,000 operations per second retrieving from the database. And this is, you know, not uncommon for, it's actually kind of light for a production load. Let's see how we did performance-wise. What we're seeing, the majority of our operations came in this range, you know, sub-milliseconds, 600 microseconds, 620 microseconds, something like that. So you can see it's pretty easy for you to go out, spin up a server, load test it, and do literally hundreds of thousands of key value operations against your Couchbase database sub-millisecond response. So that solves one of your query type problems. The second query type is going to be what you would call a production SQL query or an index query. Couchbase uses a language called NQL, which is a superset of ANSI SQL. What that means is that everything that you're completely comfortable with in the SQL world, the selects and the wheres and the joins and all of that sort of thing, is built into the language. In addition to that, there are linguistic elements which are available, which will allow you to leverage those hierarchical or array elements within the JSON structure and treat those as if they were flat. For instance, you can unnest an array. So this gives you that comfort and familiarity of the SQL language, along with the power and agility of storing your data in JSON in the first place. And again, Couchbase gives us some pretty good ways to test these, you know, programmatic machine queries. And I'll show you an example of that right now. So let's go to our query node, and suppose I want to do, I've got a little application and it needs to retrieve beers by name. Well, first thing I'm going to want to do is create an index on the name so that I have a way to retrieve them via that index. And creating index is a pretty simple process. You say create index and you tell it the field that you're indexing, and you give it whatever conditions in the predicate. In this case, I only want to do index documents of type equal to beer. So let's go ahead and create that index. Once that index is created, then I can do whatever type of query that I want. So if I just wanted to go out and, let's say, grab a bunch of beers if their name is not blank, and you'll see Couchbase returns those values back to me in, you know, a matter of milliseconds, which is nice. You'll also see that the data is returned in JSON format. This is valuable to me because I can then pass it directly back to my calling program via the SDK and have immediate access to it in the form that my program is used to working with. As an aside, the fact that it returns in Knowi, in JSON, is something that Knowi is really good at leveraging. This is one of the reasons why we like our partnership with Knowi. So the one other thing that we can do, again, if we like, Couchbase provides us means to test load on our queries. So let's go ahead, and this time I've got I'll show it to you, keep it simpler. So what I did was I stuck a whole bunch of queries into a file, tens of thousands of them, and said, you just run those, Couchbase, using your utilities, and put a little bit of load on the server, and let's just see how we do. So an example of how to do that would be here. Okay, so Couchbase is running. If I go back over and look here at my query resources, looks like I'm running, what, 3,400 queries per second, and my performance, for the most part, coming back millisecond or two. Some of them in microseconds, but a millisecond or two. So this is pretty good for, you know, a non-production system with one, you know, a double query node. Not bad, we'll take it. And again, you tell us what it is that you need to do in your production environment. You need 100,000 queries per second. We can help you size up your query nodes so that they can give you exactly what it is you want. It becomes very easy for you to test it, however. So that covers query type number 1, query type number 2. I also have a query type of full text search, which we could also do directly in Couchbase. It's not really relevant to our discussion now. So I want to move from there directly to the 4th type of query, which is an analytic query. Now the difference between an analytic query and a standard index query is an index query is completely predictable and optimized and used thousands or hundreds of thousands of times per second, typically called by a program or by a hell of a lot of users, right? An analytic query is fully ad hoc. I don't know ahead of time what it is that I'm going to go after. I can't possibly create all of the indexes in the world that I would need to create programmatic queries because I never know what an analyst is going to come out and do. So the way Couchbase solves the problem for analytic queries is to create an analytics service. This analytics service runs separately from the data service, so your analytic queries will never, guaranteed, never bring your data service into trouble because they are divorced from the data service. And the way that looks in a schematic is like this. I'm creating in real time a shadow of my Couchbase data onto analytics servers. These analytics servers are updated at the same time that the data service is by mutations to a document being immediately transferred to mutations on the analytics documents. They're spread across as many servers as I care to have. And we'll talk a little bit about what that means for your efficiency as we go on. The beauty of this is you don't have to have an ETL program. This is complete NoSQL with no ETL. We've got a very fast ingest, and I'll show you an example of how to do that in just a second. On the query side, the advantage of having these across multiple servers and within each server, multiple disks and multiple CPUs is that I have a huge number of parallel IO paths for my queries. So if I send a query, complex query, ad hoc to Couchbase Analytics, it's never heard of this query, I didn't pre-cook any indexes or anything, it can split that query up among the many different servers that it has available to it, leverage all those resources, parallelize the query, and return back the result extremely quickly. All of that, whole bunch of words, which amount to your team can get real-time insights against data in real time. So there's a lot of value to this architecture, and a lot of the latency is eliminated. So enough talk, let's show a little example of how you might actually use the analytics service in practice. I'm going to go to my analytics node. I'm going to create a data set. What this means is, I know that you will recall that I have 2 types of documents. I have brewery documents and beer documents. So I'm going to create a data set of my brewery documents. I'm going to create a separate data set of my beer documents. All right, and I can now connect those 2. All right, these are now fully shadowed on my data service. Any change I were to go out and make to my data service is going to be reflected on my analytics service in real time. So let's try a couple of quick test queries. You'll see my data comes back again in JSON format. This gives me the opportunity to leverage that JSON format when my SDK calls those. I can look at it in table if it makes it easier for people to see when they're in the console. If I want to join multiple data sets, here's an example of that. You'll see, well, I've taken things from two different data sets, breweries and beers, and joined them together, getting back stuff back in milliseconds, which is nice. Let's do one more example and pull back stuff from that embedded array, which is the lat long object. And again, I'm able to go out and make pretty quick work of an analytic query simply by putting these things together. So this is the quick and dirty look at Couchbase analytic servers, how easy it is to set one up, how easy it is to start to leverage it, and how easy it is to start writing queries against multiple data sets. Where we want to go from here is, how can I use Knowi to leverage these analytics and visualize them? And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Manny to talk a little bit about that.
Hey, thank you, Peter. And so the next thing I'm going to run through now is, Peter's done a wonderful job of exposing and showing how the different services on the Couchbase side. And so now I'm going to run through how with Knowi, you could connect to your analytics service and do some visualizations and analytics on top of that, and just how simple and in as few steps necessary to connect to your Couchbase data and work with that in Knowi. So let me first share my screen here so we're all seeing the same thing. All right, so I have a few Couchbase instances set up, but I'm going to run through a top-down flow and how we connect to that. And so I'm just going to go into here and then select my Couchbase, and I have some pre-filled things here, so I'm just going to give this a unique name. Let's just go webinar test. And there's a few connectivity options as well. So if you're depending on the setup of your Couchbase instance, there's a few ways to get around that in Knowi and running a direct connectivity to your instance and making a connection to Knowi as well. So I've gone ahead and make this connection. I'm going to start querying this, and so instantly from connecting that, so we do a few things automatically upon connection to that data source. So we scan through to identify whatever the buckets or data sets that are available within that data source, and then pull out any meta fields that are relevant within there. So something such as that would be the field names, the data set bucket names, and as well as the data types that are within there. And there's a few views to this here. One is, let me give this a quick refresh. I might be experiencing some network latency here. Let's go back into this, create a new query. There we go. Right, so on the left side, so we have these two views here. On the left side is a query builder, which lets you visually see what's in the various buckets or data sets that you have in your Couchbase instance. And on the right side is just more so for the power users, where if you know exactly what you want to do, you can start writing your unique query directly with the same syntax as you would directly in Knowi. And so that when we talk about native integration on the Knowi side to Couchbase, that's exactly what we mean by that, which is you could, the same experiences that you expect running your queries or querying your analytics service or querying your data on Couchbase, that same experience, that same syntax is fully supported with a native integration. So there's no additional drivers or plugin necessary on your side to mitigate that connection between Knowi and where your data is located on Couchbase. And so for this, I'm just going to select using the same data set that Peter just ran through with the beer sample. I know it's Tuesday, we're all thinking about beer. So I'm just going to keep that same theme going along here and reuse that same component. So I've connected to my beer sample data sets. And on this side, I'm just going to select a few fields to work with for the query in here. Now, if I know my syntax again directly, I can just jump right into this section on the right side and the nickel query area and start writing that. But for the less brave users, you can leverage this query builder to generate that syntax, and the syntax that's generated is the same syntax that's expected when that query is executed. And let's grab a couple of these here. and preview the results. So actually that's already in there. Let's grab city. And the last bits here would be, let's go type. All right, so I've got my query here, and that's been generated on this right side here. And we can preview this query just to see what's returned back and make sure what we're working with is the right data set. So right now the query is executing against my analytics service, and it's going to return some data set back for me. And then while that's going on, let's just give this a name here. So we can see on the bottom here, these are the results from the query. So we have some nested objects, and we have some tabular data. One of the powerful things with Couchbase actually is directly on Couchbase, you could unnest, I believe using the unnest clause within the select statement, and unnest some of this nested data that we have returned here. But the other option, which we highly recommend rather, is it's moving a lot of the processing to the NQL query and having that execute the processing on the query. But there are, for some cases when you might want to do perhaps some more advanced analytical functions, we have this Cloud9QL query here, which does various things such as forecasting, time series functions, or if you wanted to do some code analysis, there's a handful of functionalities within this C9QL query that is provided by Knowi that you can use on top of your NQL query. So it complements the strength of running a NQL query. So on this, I'm just going to use one of the functions to expand and unwind this this nested data set field here. So let's go geo and then rerun this preview. And then give that a second and just, there we go. Right, so that the previously nested JSON data we had has been expanded and unwinded into a columnar format. And you can see those three fields on the right side. So we have the accuracy, the latitude, and the longitude. And then the next thing here now is to decide how to run this query. You can either cache the results for reuse later on, which is actually what we're going to use in this session today, or we can trigger this query as a direct runtime query to be run against your analytics service each and every time. And so one last thing here on this side, and then before we move on to the visualizations and charting functionality. So let's give this a name. Let's say beers and breweries. Query. And then so we have that. This is all set up. So now we can save and run this. And this is going to run and create a cache results, which we're going to use. And we can see the status. It's already done and it's completed. And so now the next part is so we have the data set that's been created. And within Knowi, we think of the data set as a data model, which we can reuse. So this concept of a data as a service layer where you have your data stored in Couchbase and you want to reuse some of that data set for analytical purposes, operational purposes, empower some of the end users or downstream users, either the decision makers or the analysts, to create visualizations and answer questions. And so when you create a query, the results of that is stored into a data set. And that data set is what we think of as a virtualized data set or a data model that can be reused across use cases and user groups. So Phil, let's give this a dashboard name. Let's go US breweries. It's a blank slate to start painting the picture with. So we can pull in that data set that we've created. Again, this is the, and when we talk about the data model or the virtualized data set, this is what we think, this is what we refer to as far as that goes. And so now we have this is a lot of information. It's not very useful. So we want to dissect this and create multiple views. One way to go about that is using the natural language querying. So with the natural language querying, essentially it allows you to ask questions on your data using with an English-like syntax, the same way you would approach Google search and look for something. That same functionality, that same experience and use case, we've made it a little bit simpler to reduce the steps between you and your data sets and the end user and the business decision maker being able to get insights from their data set. So I can start with this, and as I'm typing here, it's giving me auto suggestions based on the data set that I have, taking into account the user security and governance. that has all been screened and filtered out to only show what's relevant on the search and on the user's profile. So if I keep this going, let's say I wanted to identify what's the average ABV. Let's first spell that correctly by category. Let's go a little bit more in style. Per category, like let's say Belgian and French ale. So we select that and execute that, and then it goes off, does its thing, and then it's going to return back the results of that. So it knows that what we're looking for is we wanted to get the average ABV for the category, and so we can see beneath the hood what's been done. We can change the operations if we wanted to. So you have a chance as well to, outside of what the natural language querying is executed on your Couchbase data, you could do some final tweaks to that, or if this looks good, we can now visualize this. So we have this result in tabular format. On the next tab over, we can apply simple visualizations to this. Let's go with make some tweaks to this. So we have category on the x-axis. Let's put a grouping on the legend. And just from here now, create a widget out of this. So from this, let's say average ABV by category. And then create this from there. So it's, to show what we've done here, we've gone from, let's refresh this here. We've gone from creating the query and then reusing that template to generate another view from that. Let's see something. Let's see what happened here. Okay, that looks right. Let's save this. Right, so we've gone from using the queries, using the results from our data sets to create a query from there, and then using the natural language querying to get some more information from that. And so from this view now, we could export this to a CSV or download the image from the visualizations, or send this off to another group or another user for more collaborative nature of work in there. And then one more example on this, just to show a different view of this is, let's look at some of the breweries only. So if we just go show me breweries, that screens out all the beer types and exposes only the breweries that are on this data set here. And similarly as well, let's clone this into breweries. And what I'm going to show you next is, so it's with this concept of a data model and being able to reuse that, if I go into this data diagram, we could see sort of the mapping of the flow of data coming in. So initially we had a single query that gave us the data set, this virtualized data set. And then from there, we've created multiple views from this. So if you think about your workflow and how you use your data coming in from Couchbase, you oftentimes want to reuse that data set once, or the results from the query, and expose this to end users and have them go to town with that. So now, rather than exposing the query side or the data source to different users or user groups, internal or external, you can expose just the actual data set. And then from there, have them create their own visualizations, answer their own questions, be a bit more proactive in utilizing the data that's been provided for them to now visualize and get insights from that. On the visualization side, we do support about 30 to 35 off-the-shelf visualization types, from the simpler common chart-like functionalities to geo-based information, some anomaly detection, which leverages our machine learning model on that, and a few other key use cases and unique use cases there. And then on the bottom, there's a few more customized chart and visualization options based on how you want the data presented. On this, because we have some lat long here, let's change this to a image heat map. If I could find that, let's see, here we go. Geo heat maps. So it's already recognized that we have lat longs in the data set, and so it's automatically rendered that into with the right intensity on this heat map. This now I'm just going to make a couple of small adjustments here, so this is a bit more visible. So change the zoom level. Let's center the chart in a bit. So let's go 39.90, and on the longitude, let's go 98. 7. All right, and let's increase the blur factor here. So now we've gone about, so we, again, just to reiterate, we've been able to reuse that, and now we can visualize the data set. So by looking at this map, you know, it lets us know in the two coastal or the bi-coastal regions of the United States are where we have the most breweries, and that's sort of a irrational assumptions, as you might imagine, without looking at the data set itself. And then, so from here, a few other things that we can do to this, just to make it more interactive, that is supported on the Knowi side are, we can add dashboard filter into this, either at the dashboard level from here, or at the widget level, just a bit more focused and tailored section of that. And as well as adding drill down capabilities to your reporting and charting, just to make things a bit more interactive. And let's actually see what's going on with this guy here. So let's reset this and then run that query one more time. Let's save the history of that so we can reuse that, which is a good thing. And then if we visualize this, let's go here, change to a stacked column. Actually, what I want to do is switch the order of this. And if we save this, let's go back to the dashboard. So then a few other things as well to note. So we have the, we ran through the query, the data source of connecting to your Couchbase. We ran the query, resulted in this. We've done some charting in this. One other bit to show on this is how you could have your data not work for you. So we've set up the queries, and we may have put it on a scheduler to refresh that data every 2 hours, for instance, or once a day. Oftentimes, you might want to look for a condition in that data set for something that has changed, and you want to be notified for that. And so we have this trigger notification that allows you to set an alert on your data set. Essentially, it's just monitoring your data set, and as things happen, as conditions occur, you or a group of users, or within a set of users, get notified when that change has happened. So with this trigger notification, we can select that data set that we've initially created, the beers and breweries query, add some condition using the C9QL or the Cloud9QL. For instance, if ABV is, if a new beer gets released with an extremely high ABV and you want to be notified when that's happened, just because you are looking for high ABV beers, you can apply that condition on here and then set the alert frequency either in real time or in a frequency mode to periodically pull that data set and look for the specific conditions and then get notified when that change has occurred. So that functionality there of having your data work for you, where you've set it up once, you've leveraged some of the key features of storing your data in a Couchbase analytics service, then using Knowi as a visualization layer and advanced analytics on top of that to now have your data set work for you. Those are some of the key ideal things that if you think about your workflow, you think about how analytics is used across organizations or across use cases, that alleviates the amount of time and gets you from your data to action and insights in as little time as possible. And so with that, I'm going to wrap this part of the demo up, and let's jump back into the slides and have Peter and Ryan continue this out.
This is a little brief look at Couchbase customers across a number of industries, and more important to us, of course, we're happy to have lots of customers and lots of large customers and lots of small customers. But the thing that we really brag on this slide is these customers are using Couchbase for mission critical operations. These are operations that are central to their business and that cannot go down under any circumstances. And that's where we can really shine for you. If you have applications that need to be supported by a database which will never be down, never have to be taken down, either planned or unplanned for upgrades, if you need that scalability and performance in your database, if you need to be able to do not only key value and index queries, but full text queries and analytic queries as well, then we're your guys and we would love to work with you. And with that, I will hand it over to Ryan.
Thanks, Peter. So from our perspective, something that we're exceptionally proud of is the fact that we've built a platform that is not limited to a single vertical. We're proud of the fact that because we are an actual platform and not a single function tool, we have the ability to sit across verticals. And what you can see from a small sample set of our customers is that there are particular verticals that we have exceptionally great stories to tell, great customer logos, and of course, use cases and case studies, in particular around IoT, financial services, healthcare, and media. We love telling our story of the Couchbase being an exceptional NoSQL platform, Knowi being a great analytics platform, but the Couchbase plus Knowi being the Nirvana type solution for our customers. Peter, would you mind flicking to the next slide, please? Real quick, it's not often that we are either at an event or talking to people where people say, no, we don't like free things. So what we would recommend is if you have a chance, please click on either of the links. So knowi.com/free trial. We do offer customers and potential customers the ability to trial the Knowi platform, no limitations behind it for 21 days. And from a Couchbase perspective, you have the ability to download their platform and technologies. What I will say as well, just to add on to that, internally here at Knowi, we talk about the 32-1 perspective. So we challenge you to go out and from the time you sign up all the way through to the time that you connect your data source and show your first visualization, it should take you in the vicinity of 30 seconds to sign up, 2 minutes to connect your data source, and 1 additional minute to get your first visualization. So please do go ahead and trial that out. And then, Peter, thank you. If there are any questions, Carly, I'm going to hand back to you to see if there were any questions that came up through the panel, and we'd be happy to answer those as we go along.
All right, so like Ryan said, that's it for the presentation today. Thank you guys. So we're going to jump straight into the Q&A portion of the session. If you do have any additional questions, it's not too late. Feel free to drop them in the chat box as we ask the ones that have already been popped in there throughout. So the first question, and this probably goes to both Peter and Manny, does Knowi only connect to a Couchbase analytics service?
Yeah, I can start with that. The answer to that is no. You've got a couple of different types of queries in Couchbase. You've got analytics queries, which we spent a good bit of time talking about today. You also have standard index queries, programmatic queries. In that case, if you're supporting a large number of dashboards or something like that, you might very well use the Couchbase query service, and Knowi's great at supporting that. Manny, did I cover that? Do you want to add anything to that?
No, I think that was perfectly said. Yeah, we do connect to the analytics and query service today, and looking to expand that to the other querying capabilities in the near future.
All right, great. Okay, there's a couple more questions here. The second one is, can I blend a third-party API data with my Couchbase data?
This is Manny here. Yeah, absolutely, you can. So with Knowi, you could blend or join your Couchbase data across multiple data sets or buckets, and as well, if you are using REST API, a third-party API or relational data as well, those are things that you can blend in alongside your Couchbase data.
Great, and then one more for you, Manny. Can I apply machine learning on my Couchbase data with Knowi?
You can, and today we support 3 machine learning questions that you can run against your Couchbase data, which would be regression, classification, and the third will be for anomaly detection. And so those are the three out of the box. However, you can also, for customized use cases and machine learning models, you could wrap that into Knowi and pipe that to your Couchbase data in real time or in a streaming process.
Great. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our Q&A session. Thank you to Ryan, Manny, and Peter for a very informative session, and to everyone that submitted the questions throughout. Like I mentioned earlier, there will be a recording of this session in your inbox soon, and please feel free to reach out to either company with any additional questions. Thank you all for joining us, everybody, and have a great day.